Good evening, fellow travelers. Welcome to Cruising into the Void. My name is Nagy. With me is my stonefish solid partner, Mr. Chris. How are we doing today, bud?
Doing awesome. Stonefish not in October though. Like
I know it's well, that's what made me laugh as it came up. I was like, it's not even a stoner fish. It's October 1st. It is perfect. It is a great start to this.
but
Now, I'm
yeah,
not gonna lie, this topic's got me almost like nervous because it's so big that I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to condense this down into just one. But I'm
you
excited
can.
to see at least where we get going with it.
Yeah, so we've been playing a bunch of board games up on this ship and we want to tell you guys which ones we enjoy. So, let's get into it.
Maybe. So there's literally thousands of games. I did a rough count and I'm sitting on our bookshelves. We've got about 80 80 to 90 that I could count, and that's even without like the expansion. That's just like the base games. And then adding expansions, it's well into the triple digits plus mini card games puts that like I would say probably like 120. So
Okay.
literally, it's one of those things where people come over like, "Oh, you guys like board games?" And we're like, "Oh yeah." Like, "What do you want to play?" We're like, "We don't know. We don't have anything good.
Well,
We
as you
can't
can
pick one right
see,
now."
we have the constant
The
running board game that I think that's been out here for what?
Yeah,
Six or seven episodes in a row now. So,
absolutely. So for me, that's where it boils down to almost more difficult of like the paralyzation of choice, where I found that I have a bunch of categories, and you said that you're like, no, no, this is the game we're playing, and that almost made me laugh. Where I was like, oh, that's so much easier, just
mhm.
telling people what we're playing versus like, here's your cheesecake factory menu of what you want to play, and it's like I don't know,
Bro, and
what
they
do you
don't
got?
even know what they're on the board. And here's the other part. They don't even know what half of them are. So they're only going to pick a game that they may know. And that doesn't mean that they
Absolutely.
like it.
Yeah,
That's just because
when
they
we meet
recognize it.
people and I talk about it, I'm like, "Oh, we really enjoy board games," or when I was doing a bunch of job interviews and they're doing Zoom calls and I have the board game strategically like all that in the back. They're like, "Oh, do you like it?" And they're like, "Oh, what's your favorite?" And I've literally started saying like, "I can just make up words because I could tell you the real names, but you're not going to know what they are." So, like I just say I like board games.
Well, just tell them the names of them. People will look them up.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope. It's more of like the hey, let's hang out. Maybe come over and we'll actually play these. But getting into it, you said the best way, and I loved it, was to talk about different game types, game mechanics. So why don't you kind of tell what that means?
Yeah, so specifically talking about game mechanics is basically how is the game designed and what are some of the core structures of things that you're going to be doing. So, like, one of the things that I enjoy is a mechanic called deck building. And deck building basically means any time that you have to add to your pile to make it bigger and greater, right? So, for a
With
simple,
actual cards, like literal
it
deck of
doesn't have to
cards.
necessarily be cards. It can be just
Oh,
generally building whatever because people have played it in different ways. Basic form of deck building would be like, what's the word game? Scrabble. You know how in Scrabble you have to build your pile in front of you a specific way to spell the word that you want. And you have to use
okay.
them accordingly, but you can also save them and strategically build it out a different way, right?
Okay, interesting. Yeah, all
That's
right.
that's the basic concept of deck building in a very
Okay.
very nutshell. Now, it
Yeah.
obviously gets more complex when you get into a game like Dice Tower Adventures where you collect cards, put them into your deck and then replay it with better building cards inside of there. It
Okay.
The game can get very complex, but in its very simple form, think building idea of
Yeah.
Scrabble. Mhm.
So yeah, deck and the other way I've heard it phrased is there's deck and machine building where you're
Correct.
drawing cards, creating. You get one card, it goes down, it's going to add up. It's step one, and you're trying to get that like numerous step ones, and then you're going to add step twos and step threes, and each one's going to reap more benefits or powers or things like that. But you're literally
Exactly.
building your own kind of board, person, character, combatant, anything to be playing the game. I
And
think,
you're
yeah,
I enjoy it. There's two ways to do it. There's the active way, which is a game where you build it up over time, and the passive way, which is when you build it beforehand. So think of Magic the Gathering. You
okay,
build your deck beforehand, you come in, and then we play each other. But you can still build your deck 1,000 different ways because things
okay,
synergize differently. But deck building is one mechanic that I thoroughly enjoy inside of games.
okay.
What
One of
about
my
you?
favorites is called a worker placement. So
Mm-hmm.
you have usually, 5, 10, can depend on the game. You have a set of characters, just call them pilots. And you've got little, or tokens, because you got 5 tokens, and each time it's your turn, you will place one. And then where that thing is placed will give you different things. If you place it on square one, you get money. Place on square two, you get weapons. Place on, and so you're placing these each of your turns and reaping the rewards of it. And it is kind of like a building game where you're trying to build up strategically and things like that. And some of the ones I like involve skill, other ones involve more luck. And there's a balance of line I like to play because sometimes if it's not the right turn order or someone's going for the same kind of objectives of you and you're just in the wrong spot, it's not as fun when you kind of throw a luck card in there.
Oh,
It can go either way of either balancing it out or completely skewering it. So, but worker placement just being each turn you're kind of doing something and reacting to everyone else's turns around because they might, like I said, either be impeding you or helping you, or it can be cooperative or combative. So that's one of my favorite aspects.
oh. If we just talk about luck versus skill in general, I need it to be 80-20 in one direction. I cannot
Interesting.
have those games that are like kind of, it depends on what you get, right? I need
Yeah,
it to
the
be
too much of it is
80%
like,
one
yeah,
or the other. And because then I
yeah,
can like, for my own ego, go into it. Because if I go
right,
into a game that I know is 80% luck, all right, cool. It happens. So and so can win 9 times out of 10. It's okay. But a game that's
right.
80% skill, it's very irritating.
Any other mechanics you want to go? I got one more. It's kind of
um,
not really
the next one that I really enjoy is any type of bartering system that's inside the
okay.
game. Because what I really enjoy, and one thing you'll notice about the games that I chose, were the players are the spotlight. The game mechanics are there to kind of progress the story, for lack of a better term, or progress the game. But the players are really what make the show. And one of the good ways of doing that is a good bartering system. It can be
Yeah,
we've seen it done a few different ways in games, and however you want to share it, trade it, do it different ways. But a good bartering system allows players to become the show, for lack of a better term, right?
yeah. And that actually loops right into like kind of mine, which is like turn-based versus group involvement. Because to me, that's one of the last and important mechanics of a game is if it's a game where if it's just your turn and all I'm doing is sitting here and waiting, and then it's just John's turn, I'm just sitting here waiting, then it's Susie's turn, I'm just sitting here waiting, and then it's my turn and everyone else is waiting, they can lose a lot of interest, especially with more complex games. When it
Mm-hmm.
takes 15 minutes to get back to your turn, if you're not involved, it can be very boring. And that just goes hand in hand with like a bartering system of I'm going to stay engaged when it's not my turn because someone can either help me or I can be involved or other things like that.
Or
And
I
so
need
yeah,
to
that
just
is
generally pay attention to what's happening and who has what, right?
right.
Whereas you and I can kind of both go on this pet peeve is more games need timers for turns. Holy crap. There's so many games that I
Yeah,
think die just by me smashing my head against the wall waiting for somebody to take their turn.
like this game was supposed to be like about an hour. We're at hour 2.5 because you keep saying I'm not sure when it gets your turn and you had those 15 minutes to prep and do things. And yeah, which I think is going to lead us. That I think covers it. It's leading us into one of the most important aspects of board games for me, which is learning a new board game etiquette. So for me, like I said, I have
Why is this
I'm
important to you? Let me
because
ask.
it is so clutch to me because I've had to deal with it so many times. Where again, we have over 100 games. I will happily play them almost all with you, but let me teach you. When people say, "Oh, I learned by playing," okay, I go, "It's your turn." Well, what do I do? Like, well, I was going to tell you. So, like that first new getting a new game. If
That's an aggressive way of taking it. Either I'm not going to tell you anything, or, or
that's how
I'm
people
going to tell
again.
you
I've literally
everything.
encountered
That's a very
situations
bullish way of approaching it.
so so many times where we're gonna play. Hey, we're gonna play this new game. Now I'm gonna read you the actual rules, or I'm gonna explain these rules to you, and you're getting an information dump. So yes, it is overwhelming information. So I always preface it with, "Hey, I'm gonna tell you everything. You're gonna forget most of it, but at least it's in there, so that when it's like your turn and happening, you kind of have that little list, and then I'll walk you through it." But when people just like cut you off or zone out or look at their phone in the middle of the explanation, I'm like, hey man, this is kind of important for what you're going to be doing. And they're like, dude, I just learned by playing. And you're like, okay, well that means I have to like do your turn for you while you
Hmm.
kind of look along, like look at it, take notes, and then you can go. But again, if I'm taking your turn 5 times for you by the time you get it, like I might as well just be like, here, I'm gonna play with myself and you watch, and then when you feel good, you take over. Like that's literally how it feels sometimes.
Yeah, but aren't you happy that people are just there present playing the game with you?
If they're playing, but when they're not present or when they go, dude, I just learned by playing, I go, okay, well, how about just scour these notes? And then when it's your turn, they go, what do I do? And I go, well, it's in the notes. Well, I'm not sure what to do. Like, well, you can read it or I can tell you, but all we did was like I'm literally just being a jerk and skipping all that
Uh
to
huh.
saying like pay attention right now, so I don't have to hold your hand through this in 5 minutes.
Yeah, but people learn different ways. And I think if you wanted people to play board games with you, which you have 120.
Like when they say, "Oh, I just learned by playing. Let's just get going." It's like that just like hurts my heart. Where I'm like, okay, it just knows that I'm gonna have to explain all this 5 times to you because you won't let me walk you through it in the beginning. I'm not just like reading the thing like, "Hey, pay attention." I'm standing at the front of the class. The board's set up. I'm doing everything. I'm explaining. I've even asked people, "What's your learning style? Do you want an info dump? Are you like kinetic? Do you want to touch the pieces? Why don't you roll the?" I've literally done all of these things. I have played games with so many
It.
people.
I'm gonna cut you off. If anybody
Yeah.
is that grumpy about you teaching them a game, sounds like you shouldn't be playing a game with them. And tell them you're done and put it away. If anybody's that
It's
bad
more
about paying
difficult.
attention to learning the game and spending time with you, then it sounds like you should just not
It's
play
a
the
little
game.
more difficult just because of being a rambunctious and energetic person, and usually, beverages or things are flowing. And then I'm like, okay, lock it up. We got to focus here. And they're like, dude, you were just like challenging everyone to beer pong, and we decided to play board games. Like, it's a conflict of my own personalities half the time. But anyway, that's just a huge side tangent where it's like you said, if someone's going to take the time to teach you something, take the time, even if it's going in one ear out the other, just nod, say, okay, let them do their thing and carry on with it. We'll see when I bring you a game. We'll see which. I can't wait to. I'll teach you one. Be like, was that good or bad? And you're like, no, that was one ear or the other. Not works. Nothing. Okay, well, noted.
That's exactly how I'm going to do it. And I'll tell you 30 minutes into the game, we won't even need to finish it, that I won't enjoy it or not. I'll be like, this
Okay.
sucks. This-
Yeah, but that's the other thing is like it's super okay to say like I don't like this game.
yeah, but most people aren't going to do that when you're you about the game. They don't
No,
want to hurt your feelings. I have
you
no
can't.
problem, but they don't
No,
want to
I
hurt
mean,
your feelings because you're excited
again, if they're
about
playing games with
exploding
me, like
cows.
that's a wall that's not there at all. Like there's no egos on that. But
Yeah,
anyway, let's
but
jump into it. What is one of your favorite games?
well, here's where you set a trap for me because you
Okay.
said pick your top three favorite games, and I picked my top three, and I put one honorable mention because I thought it was a low number, and you listed 13 different games.
Yeah.
So
Well, when I asked you about it, you were like, "Oh, I can name like a couple," and I was like, "Okay, well, I have different categories for every type of thing." So it's gonna be interesting to just kind of vent. You might just have to kind of freestyle a couple of them in there,
You
guy.
know what? I'm gonna bring this in, and I think part of your problem is you enjoy too many games, and you have to teach people all the time, which frustrates you, as opposed to picking one game that you play with people often.
Yeah, that's who wants to just latch onto one thing. I love like
You
there's
don't
the
need
broad
it.
spectrum
No,
of
but you don't
things,
need to latch onto one. Just pick like four.
but there's so many varieties where it's more fun to kind of have those. Like, and there's literally like Wingspan's a great example. That one's about birds. It's kind of cool, but there's also like Wyvern Span, and it's all dragons and wyverns and drakes and all that
No,
stuff
I
rather than
got
birds.
you. I get what you're
Yeah.
saying, but I'm saying that's where the overwhelming part comes for the most normal people. And I can tell you that from Warhammer. Let me be a guy to I can tell you things that can be
That's a
overwhelming real
pretty
quick.
esoteric like jump to.
I know,
Yeah, I
but I'm
mean,
saying I know the face. I know
mhm. Yeah, and I mean that's what when people do come over, we talk about it. They say, "Hey, do you like board games?" And they go like, "Yeah, we play Monopoly and Sequence and Trouble once in a while." Like, okay, you don't really play board games. Like, would you like to learn some crazy ones that are out there? And then you jump into it.
yeah. Well, jump into it. What's your favorite games then? You got group, PvP, and favorites.
Yeah. So top three, not any particular order, but if I had to, I'd kind of say like number three would be a game called Lords of Waterdeep with the expansion of Scoundrels of Skullport. So this is one we will play with people that have no idea what Dungeons and Dragons is and never really played other types of games because it is a very cool fantasy games when you actually read the cards and things like that. It makes a lot more sense in the immersion into the world. So for everyone out there, Waterdeep is a giant city in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons. And I think it was even mentioned in Honor Among Thieves, the movie, and I was like, "Oh, that's our game, yeah." But the game itself is a worker placement where you get a main card, and you'll get like a handful of different objectives. Where like your base one is complete objectives with A, B, or C in them, and they'll give you bonus points. Each objective you complete gives you points. You literally are counting your score as you go, so you can kind of see how everything's going. So it's again an involvement where, oh snap, Chris just got a quest that gave him 20 points. I can see how far ahead he is. Maybe I need to boost my stuff up. But then on your turn, you have a little token and you will place it in different areas. So a quest is you need to complete this quest. So you need to gather a couple wizards, a couple thieves, a couple fighters, and a couple barbarians, whatever. And when people have no idea what those are, it's really funny because they're just colored cubes. So you need three orange, two black, and three purple. And then when you get those in your keep in your tavern, you cash them in. You completed the quest. You count your points. So you could take away all the dialogue of fantasy Dungeons and Dragons nerd speak, and you go get three purple tokens in your box, and you get 3 points or however many points. And like
Mm-hmm.
again, you're building up cards. You can get a bunch of stuff. You can go to different places, and you are involved because it is turn based. You only place one token at a time, and a lot of people need those certain resources, need those colored blocks. So you're looking like, okay, well, I was going for this quest that gives me a bunch of points, but all my resources I need are blocked. I'm going to go for these other colors that give me a smaller one, so at least I can keep doing stuff for gathering for now. But that fantasy level mixed with super introductory, and then the more you play, the more you're kind of involved in like nerding out and learning stuff, the more competitive it can actually become because people start to get the concept of the game.
Okay. And so, would this be PvP or group, or
This
just
is a group one. So this one we found it's not really great for like two, three people, especially just one like person versus person, just one on one, because you're playing so many things. You're basically always getting it. It's still fun because you get to play, but your score is just way bigger because it's only you placing versus another person versus when there's like 3, 4 people and you know, oh, if Jared's going for that, I'm just going to go for this other half of these quests and get the other style points. So more fun with group, but definitely playable with just one person.
Okay. All right.
And that one's not particularly luck. It is, a random deck of cards, and I've had games where Jera got bonuses for like a person got bonuses for different colors, and they were just constantly getting them, so they were constantly getting huge points. And my quests were only giving me like 5 points per thing, and they were cashing in like 15, 20. Like, well, unfortunately, I'm just not getting what I want. But that is one of these aspects of the game where you can. It's not like luck based extremely.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be a luck based game. Like that's just kind
No.
of part of the game, right? Like
Yeah.
but that's where I'm saying it's like 20% because that's just kind of how you draw cards. Like if you don't draw
Right.
good cards, it happens. But we all had the same deck to pull from, so I'm not upset by that.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Like
No, you're like, I'm not mad. This is just unfortunate. It's not like, oh, you're so
exactly,
lucky.
and I
Like,
can be honest
no.
with myself about that, right?
Yeah.
Like you could be like, you know what,
Yeah.
this just sucks. I only got +2 gold cards, so I only got money, which does me no good. Which does
Right. Yeah.
so. But I'm looking this game up right now. It looks like a good time. It looks like a very overwhelming game board in the map. Like the map is a
It
very
does.
aggressive,
So
fantasy-driven map.
it's a big map. It's a lot of little literal and physical, tiny little pieces. But once it's those things where I've even told people what I'm saying. I go, don't worry about all these things that I'm doing because your turns are so simple. Of like you even start with a couple quests. I go, what do those mean? And if you don't like those, you can go get new ones. If you just put your guy here, you get new cards. You go for those. Do you like those? Cool, go for them. If you don't like them, trash them. Like there's so many different ways around it where it's like it's just a lot of different things to look at, but super simple of like look at this one thing, what do you need? You need a couple of these, couple of these, couple of these, like cool. Then you go here, here or here. That's it. But like the strategy comes from like, oh, I'm gonna be building these different things all over the place, or blocking other people, or kind of seeing what they're going for. And there's not a lot of like, oh, what? Let me look at Chris's board. What's he going for? Versus just like managing your own stuff. And then sometimes, most of the time, it coincides with, oh, everybody needs the wizards, and there's only like 1 or 2 spots to get them. So if you're playing with 4 people, 2 people are always gonna lose out on them.
Okay.
Yeah, super fun stuff.
It definitely sounds like a game though that you have to play 2 or 3 times to really enjoy. You're not gonna enjoy. It sounds like a lot's going on the first time around.
No, like I said, it is one of those ones that is simple enough that like you're just going for your own thing, and you'll figure out like, oh, I just need to go for these, and these ones will give me extra points. Like, yep, that's it. And just like I said, just going through it. There's enough that's always going on where like you can change who gets to go first. You can buy in different things. Like you can manipulate your own turns enough that even sitting back, like it's kind of hard to mess up.
No, but I'm saying you still have to learn all those cards and have fun, like figuring out how the game board plays with itself. I can see where the objective is very simple, but it
Yeah.
sounds like it gets extremely complex in the ways to play it.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the new people I've played with, like you said, you're not wrong. 2 or 3 to be like, oh, I totally got what's going on, or basically by the end of the first game to be like, I got it at the end. It was just too late. So yes, everything you said was correct. My entire tangent was unnecessary. Karen,
All right. Well, I'm going to start with my honorable mention, Monopoly.
ugh, I
Dude,
can't
the
believe this
only
one put
thing
on
that
there.
Monopoly has against it, the only thing it has is that turns aren't timed. They're fucking that's what kills every Monopoly game because it takes forever. It takes forever. If Monopoly came with a 2-minute timer for your turn, it would be splendid. All right?
When's the last time you played Monopoly?
Say about a year ago?
Okay, that's actually very impressive
Yeah.
because everyone I know, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to play it," because I'm actually partially okay with playing Monopoly. Like, yeah, we have Monopoly, but like, when's the last time you played? And people go, "Oh, I haven't played in like over a decade." And you're like, exactly. And along with what you said, the reason I hate Monopoly is because most people played when they were like children, teenagers, whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
I call it the adult move of you haven't played a game of Monopoly where someone goes, "You are out." That's it. And it's along with the turn timer of when we played, I go, when you're out of money, you don't want to trade, you don't want to do anything, you're out. It's not the, oh, let me go, let me limp along. No, you're out. And we've played a full game of Monopoly in like under an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And people were really surprised because they're like, I had no idea. I was like, yeah, this is what happens when Chris, you owe me $1,100.
It's a very
Well, like,
snowbally game. So
yeah,
snowbally means as it rolls down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. In Monopoly, it is very easy for the person that has money to make more money very quickly and rob everybody dry. That is why the first
right,
like 5 turns are a mad hot dash to get what you need.
yeah,
And then after that, you know exactly how the game's going to play out. It's not hard.
right.
And they
And
do the core mechanics well. They do the core mechanics well, just other than not having turns, because it's always a simple party game. Everybody's drinking, everybody's smoking, everybody's doing whatever, and it just slows to an absolute drawl where you're banging your head waiting for somebody to come back from the bathroom to do their turn, and they have no
that
idea what's
or
going on.
just ridiculousness. Like, hey, give me a blue tile so I have a Monopoly. I'll give you a yellow tile so you have Monopoly. Like, no, give me 3 tiles and I'll give you this crap. Like, these are unrealistic deals. Like, that okay, next. Like, when you say, like, okay, next. But when people try and trade every single combination of stuff, it's like, bro, no, no. Like, yeah, it just drags on. So
That's
I don't know.
That's what I'm saying. It'll be perfect if you put 2-minute timers on there, because then you have to come out guns blazing. Know what you're gonna do. Throw your dice. Then if you're gonna make a trade, you got to make it quick, right? Or
Right.
if you want a friend, like if you want to be a real asshole, you could filibuster their time and be like, I don't know, man. I'm really thinking, and I would do that all the time. I would totally
Right. By
eat
like
your
the
time
second
up.
time, be like, maybe if you. Okay, that's a no. Moving on. You don't
Hold
have to
on,
take the
let me
dice. Yeah.
see.
Yeah. I think it would be interesting to play, like you said, and just play a game where it's 2 minutes, where your turn's done, and by the time I roll the dice, well, I was about to. No, well, you had 2 minutes next, and I think doing that could keep it going enough to the point of. But the last couple of times we played, like I said, they'll stall out when
Hmm.
everybody's got two of every color, and no one will trade to finish the monopolies. You're like, okay, well, we can just keep going around trading like $40 unless someone's gonna finally just make a trade. So do we want to do that
Exactly.
or nope? Another turn of $40 each. All right, sweet. Like,
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, very terrible honorable mention, but again, one that stood the
Not
test
a
of
terrible
time.
honorable mention. It's a great
It's
honorable mention. Other
it
than
really
the
is.
lack of time. That's
Yeah,
it. That's the only
I
thing
would.
that shoots Monopoly in the foot. That's the
Yeah,
only.
I would challenge people to bite the bullet and play a game with a timer and see how their viewpoints of it change. Because I think most people would be
Let us know.
surprised and be like, "Oh wow, that actually went by quickly," and whatever.
Hmm.
And the last thing I'll say on is I was always very kind. Or like, all right, Chris, you owe me $1,000, and you have like no money. Like, just give me, that one property, or give me those two properties, like way under the value, but I'm letting you keep limping along until I go, all right, you're out. Or like you said, just no, you owe me $1,100. Give me all the property, full value of up to $1,100, and congratulations, you're done. Yeah.
Gimme, 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 gimme. All right, who you got next? Out of your 13. You're going to have to do 2 or 3 a turn. Because
Okay.
I only have
Um,
3.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Second one is Terraforming Mars.
Okay.
Okay, this is a machine building game. This one is very complicated, and this is one we don't bust out to most new people. Like, if they haven't played Waterdeep or any kind of game like that, they're not really going to get this. So, you get a mat, You guys are terraforming Mars. You're working collectively, but also independently. So there's a board in the middle. You're trying to terraform
Dude,
Mars.
this
You're
looks
trying to get
painful.
oxygen and sorry.
This looks painful, the amount of things that has to do with the initial, whatchamacallit.
Yeah. And so there's a co-op board where it's a board of Mars, and you're trying to get the oxygen level livable. You're trying to get the water level livable, and you're trying to reveal space tiles, like land tiles among the planet that are livable. When that is all in the green and like go, the game's over. But that takes a long time. So while you're all trying to do that, you're working with your own mat of you get a space corporation. It gives you different starting aspects and attributes while you play, and then you have a deck of probably like 300 cards that are basically all these different things you can do for a space station. Now, not going to go into all the details of it because it just would take 20 minutes to explain the mechanics, but the one thing that I do really like about this is the involvement aspect. So there are 5 phases that you can play. Now, however many people are playing, you will always pick one of those phases, and it'll be like the start of the round. You go 1, 2, 3, and everybody puts a phase down, and then you do all of those phases in order as a group. So if I put phase 4 down, you put phase 2 down, and Jared put phase 1 down, we would do phase 1, 2, and 4. So everybody starts doing 1, everybody starts with, or then goes to 2, then everybody plays 4. So again, you're always being involved, and you're always doing these different things. And the different phases, one gives you gold and it lets your whatever cards you have down activate and give you different stuff so you can start buying more things. The other one lets you get more cards. The other one lets you sell cards. The other one lets... So all these different phases are implemented. So it's better when everyone plays different phases. If you all always play the same phase, you only get that one turn per round kind of thing. And then it's just massive on your you're trying to get money to buy these cards and buy these mechanics so that you can build your board bigger and bigger and bigger. Like we've finished before and like 4 people covered an entire dining room table with so many cards down. And then when like certain things happen, you're like, okay, from this turn I get like 15 gold and 20 trees and 100 gallons of water. Like it's very cool, but very
This
complex.
game looks extremely overwhelming.
It can be, but it's one of those things where like,
this would be this would be a perfect example of a game that I would play consistently after I learned it. If I learned how to play this game, I would play it over and over and over and over again with similar groups. And this is what I'm saying in that most people, if you and I and Jera were all in the same area, I would play this with you guys at least once a week. I wouldn't want to mix it up and play a different board game. I wouldn't want to play 54 different board games and know that's only half of your thing. I want to play 1 or 2 that I really enjoy. This would look like something, but I would definitely have my face plastered against the wall like this while you're trying to explain it to me.
Yeah. And it's one of the ones like it is kind of cool because you can start playing it, and this is one where it's like, hey, I'm going to give you a bunch of information, and then we will all start playing together. Like, almost none of the games that we have are just like, yo, you need to know this because we can't cooperatively work with you. Like, we don't really like games like that. It's always like, we can all play together basically like open-handed so that when we're teaching people and learning and playing, it doesn't really matter if I know what you have. Like, if you're in the bathroom taking too long, I can like be like, Chris, can I go for you? And you're like, yeah. And like games like that where you pick up and play and do stuff.
Interesting. See, I don't mind it just because I'm going to teach you the first 2 or 3 times anyway. I'm going to look over your shoulder and say, you have this. Make that play. Nod your head. Yes.
No, absolutely.
Why do I want to do this? You'll see why you want to do that in a hot second. Just put that down on the table.
And this is one of the many that we have that it's like, again, by the end, someone will be the winner, but there's so much going on that what people have and what they do and what you're seeing from everything like has very little effect on you winning or losing. You're playing your own deck, your own hands, your own machine the whole time.
Okay. All right.
So, next one, this is my honorable mention, is Ultimate Risk. Ultimate Game of Thrones Risk. So we made this up and played it on ships during a dry dock. So Game of Thrones Risk has
Wait,
Westeros and Essos.
you made this up?
No, but kind of. I'll get there. So it's Game of Thrones Risk, and the board is Westeros and Essos. So Westeros has, I think, like 38 territories, and Essos has like 32. So when you play Risk, the object is to conquer the whole world. Well, we started playing with 8 people, and we started playing with both board mats, and then we started playing with teams. So we would literally set up the board, roll dice. Whoever you matched with was your teammate. Then we deal out all the tiles or cards, flip them over, and place them on both territories. And as a team, you had to try and conquer the world. We didn't have a game that lasted less than 8 hours, and we played like probably a couple dozen times.
So is
So
that how it's actually played, or is that just your made up version?
that was our made up version. Like Risk, Game of Thrones Risk is played a certain way,
Yeah.
and we took some of the rules and we were like, hey, we don't really like that. We're gonna not play with that. Or like we call it Earth Risk with normal Risk. If you have these things, you can cash in or do things versus like. So we kind of blended some rules and kind of did some different things so that we could make it more fun and make it a team game. And then like one of the rules was if your teammate was eliminated. So if you and I were on a team and Jared killed my army, every single territory with an army of yours in it went down to one person, like one soldier. So it kind of helped speed up. Either you had to have a massive comeback or you would be eliminated quickly after. So but it was just a huge thing that we would do because we're like, guys, we're at dry dock. We have nothing to do all day. We've done our cleaning. Let's just go play an 8, 9 hour game. And we would literally like do workouts and squats and push-ups while we were playing because it was so long of being there.
Okay.
But that's my super honorable mention of like Risk to the nth level. Not quite to Access and Allies, but still.
All right. Well, one day you'll have to publish the rule set then, so that people can
Oh yeah,
play it for 8 hours, I guess.
yeah. It was yeah. It was a good one.
One of mine that I have on here, it's not technically a board game, but it kind of falls under the board games. I just have Magic the Gathering because I love Magic the Gathering. Oh, man.
Okay.
So,
Like, what about it? Because I remember playing in grade school, and then I tried to pick it up like 5 years ago, and I was like, "What is this?"
what do you mean? What about it?
Like,
What,
so many things change from like, here's your deck. You make
Mhm.
your different style of deck, and then you have some big monsters, and you kind of play, and it's about getting the person's hit points. And then it became about summoning. What are they called? Walkers or
Okay, so that's where
yeah.
you're getting too far into it. There's many different versions of the game,
Okay.
and the two big ones are Standard and Commander. Commander's when you start pulling in the planeswalkers and different things. But
So okay.
what I would say do is just go to Target, buy 2 starter decks, and play with each other. That's it. Like, that's simple. And then take turns who's playing which deck, just like we do when
Right.
you're doing Dice Throne. It's
Right.
so it is a complex game, yes, if you make it complex. As in you bring in all the different booster, you allow all these different types of cards, X, Y, and Z. Magic can get extremely complex. But if you just go buy 2 starter decks or like 4 starter decks and you just play those with people, oh, it's a great time, dude. It's phenomenal.
Interesting.
Because those
Okay.
decks are built easy. Like, they're built for you to very understand what's going on. They're not complex in that you're doing many different things. The deck has one identity, play it that way, and then enjoy the time. And games take you less than 20 minutes. It's awesome.
Interesting.
So you can play 3 or
I think
4
I'll
in a
sit
night.
down yeah. Sit down and watch some of those conventions. Just hope that they wore their deodorant.
Yeah, see, don't start with that. That's where you go wrong. See, this is
Okay.
like, don't go in the deep end. Go to Walmart, buy the starter deck, and fucking get on there. Start with that.
Start by yourself. Don't go into the realm of the neckbeards. You will immediately be chased out.
Dude, I'm telling you, just 4 starter decks or 2 starter decks, and you're gonna have a great time. You're gonna have a phenomenal time playing Magic.
Okay, I dig it. We'll jump to Jared's and I's like couple favorite games we like to play. These are person versus person. So if you got a couple, partner, roommate, these are a couple that we found are very fun. One of the first ones is Splendor. Amazing Super simple game. You are there is 6 different colors of coins and 3 different color card decks, and the coins all represent different gems and jewels. So there's rubies and onyx and sapphire, literally red, green, yellow, blue. Like you can super simple. You can just go by colors, and then the cards have values where you need X amount of each color slash jewel to buy it. Then when you buy that card, it's worth a type of jewel. So you basically your turn is to either grab three jewels and then save them into your bank, or use your banked jewels to buy a card. And some of the cards as they get higher, like more valuable, have point values. First person to 15 points wins. But it's just a very simple turn-based game of my turn. I'm either gonna save things to my bank or buy one, and I'm gonna see kind of what you're trying to collect. Maybe you're starting to go for an I4. I'm gonna go for that first. Very simple, but can be more complex of just building. But we bring this on every cruise ship because it fits in like a 3x4x3 box, and we bring it on board, set it up, takes out about like 12 by 18 inches of space. You could almost play it on a plane unless there was like turbulence. Super simple, super easy to love. And
do you have the Marvel edition?
No, I didn't know that they had one.
Oh,
I mean, it makes sense. You could literally make everything about it, but I like the gems and the jewels, my little goblin brain.
I like
Another
it.
one
Looks
is
simple enough.
Seven Wonders Duel. Very similar concept. Seven Wonders, there's 7 wonders of the world. They're trying to, and then you set up a pyramid of cards. Same kind of thing on your turn. You're either going to cash in, buy a card, or do different things. And you're trying to create your wonders versus your opponent. And you can build like an army that gives you points. And again, at the end, you're just trying to get the most points. But it's just you versus the other person, just collecting these cards, building your wonders, and trying to do things before the other person, which I found was so much better than the multiplayer Seven Wonders, because when you play that, you're only looking at like your board, and like there's little parts that are like, well, if this person next to you does this, or this person next to you does this, then you get little bonuses. So that was the only time I was paying attention to the other people. Otherwise, I was just zoning out or looking at my phone or watching a movie because it didn't matter what they were doing. With the duel, it is very like, what are you picking? Are you going for the army? Are you trying to take over my army? Are you trying to take my resources? Very involved. Little bit more complicated. That's a lie. A lot more complicated than just picking up colored cards like gems and coins. But
I was about to say, there's an Etsy shop for these particular items, and whenever there's a specific Etsy shop for a game, there's a lot going on.
You can go deep with it.
That is your first checkpoint to how complicated a game is. Is there an
That is a
Etsy
very
shop?
solid one. Like, yeah. How much can you nerd out on it? And then the last one is kind of just crib-based games. One of them we have very simple. If you don't play cribbage, which Jared and I used to play a lot because it's so simple, there's another one that we like to play, which is called The Fox in the Forest. And all the different cards, it's basically just cribs are set up for you, and the cards have different powers and things like that. And just each turn, you're just playing one, and you're kind of just my card versus your card. Some little tricksery cards let you switch certain things so you could win a crib. But very simple, very easy to play.
Okay.
And then they have another little mechanic of like, if you're always trying to win, you can actually be penalized versus if you're like, oh, I actually lost all these, it's minus points for you, and I actually get a huge bonus. Or if you're only like winning half, you get like less points than if you like lose most, kind of thing. So very interesting strategies you can play for it.
Okay. All right. And so those are all your PvP games.
Correct.
All right, so that's player versus player, all having an opponent.
Mono, yeah, like
Okay.
partner, group, roommate, or yeah.
My 2 games are both group games. They're not trying to win individually. So I picked Cursed City from Warhammer. Or from Games Workshop. It takes place in the Warhammer universe. There's a cursed city that is basically overrun with zombies, skeletons, insert your favorite undead baddie, vampires. And basically you have a bunch of different missions build the board based on the mission, and then all the pieces everybody builds and paints themselves. So generally, one person will build and paint their whole set. But one thing me and my buddies did was we passed out the pieces to each other to paint. Like, hey, you're gonna paint your character, so it looks like
Oh,
you,
nice.
like your art style, which was actually really really cool. Um, and my buddy one time sent us a video. This actually made us all feel good. Is he goes, he had somebody over and he was like, "Man, did you paint all these?" And he goes, "Actually, there's a collection of artists." So
That sounds
yeah, but it's build the board, go in, get the loot, get the objective, kill so and so, and then get out before it's overrun with zombies. So if you ever played Call of Duty Zombies, it's basically a fantasy zombies board game. Like that's the easiest way to
okay.
describe it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it gets more in depth and complex, but it's a fantasy zombies game. That's the easiest way to describe it. And it's awesome because there's a bunch of different objectives where you can like fight a boss, or they spawn mobs eternally, or there's a giant wave of undead stuff that's chasing you down and you have to get out of the map before it gets you. It's just a good time.
Nice. Average playtime? I think that was something we probably should have
Well, it's a reoccurring game, so you actually like gain stuff over time. You get loot tables, you get different things, you get items, cards. There's a bunch of stuff that you gain by doing it over time. So the
So it's a
average
campaign style. Yeah.
yeah, the average playtime is about an hour to 2 hours, depending on the map that you're doing. Some maps are simple; they're get in, kill the boss, get out, and then there's other maps where you're like trying to grab as much loot as possible, and it's gonna take you a
Right.
minute. It's gonna.
Yeah.
Hmm.
The retro on that one, Lords of Waterdeep, including setup breakdown, is definitely pushing 2 hours, two plus. Terraforming Mars, two, 3 plus.
Yeah.
But that's also like including explaining it to a newbie, or just like a lot of it is just setup and breakdown. Like that could be a good 40 minutes just because there's all the little pieces and different aspects of them. So I always include that in the entire thing. Otherwise, knock like 40 minutes to an hour off those to play. And then Splendor, 15, 30 minutes. Seven Wonders, under an hour.
Okay. All right. And then what are your
Then
last? What are you? The last one you have is group-based games.
correct. So this is the one where we will have people over that we've either started hanging out with, either friends or new friends, and we'll kind of gauge which style. And I kind of threw a couple of the top ones in here of what kind of games we like. So yeah, just to jump in, one of the first ones is a game called Pit. It's based on the financial market, like the stock market. One of the simplest games to teach people and play, but it is more aggressive. So, however many people you play with, you take that many types of card out of the deck. So, if you're 6 people, you will take six. I'm thinking the wrong word here, but it's like stocks. But it's like wheat, barley, gold, silver, platinum, oil, cattle, corn, whatever. It's this deck that has 10 different things like that. And you just put all so 6 people, you put six of those down, shuffle them all up, deal them all out. And then just like a bartering stock market, you just trade cards back and forth. And you're trying to get your hand of 10 to just be all the same. And it is chaotic and a blast. Because all 6 people start going, I got 2 cards here, I got 3 cards here, I got 1 card here. And you're just trading back and forth trying to get the ones that you want. And when you have it, you just say corner on the market, and then you throw it down, and you can keep score. But for the most part, it's just when we're playing a faster, aggressive game to just get going, we don't even keep score because it's too much fun to be yelling at each other. My sister's literally tripped and pushed me off of a table when she was next to me because she was just that aggressive playing. So it's a fun one to play like that. That is one of the more aggressive ones we have, but not quite as aggressive as Jungle Speed, which is basically just football meets like slapjack. There's a bunch of cards that have different symbols on them, and it's like 20 different types of symbols, but they all kind of look the same, but they will all have a like matching couple. And you've just flipped cards in front of you, and then when you match up with someone around the table, there's a wooden totem. It's about 6 inches tall, and it's like conical slash cylindrical, but it's wooden and it's crazy easy to grab. And when two people have the same thing, they literally physically fight for it. With one hand, grab it, and whoever gets it gets to give the loser their cards. And the object of the game is to get rid of all your cards. We used to play this on ships and have been kicked out of the bar numerous times because you have sports staff literally pulling each other over bar stools to try and get the totem and knocking things over. But just a very great aggressive time. Toning it all the way down. Those are our super physical ones where we're like, okay, people are kind of bogging down. Let's amp up with a game really quick that's super simple. So people kind of get re-energized, then we'll play more other games. Kings of Tokyo. Very simple. You pick a monster, you're rolling 6 dice, you're going for points or combat, trying to kill every other people, like other monster in there. It is partially cooperative, but last man standing, King of the Hill style. A very simple game that you can start playing, and we will literally be like, here's the 3 mechanics of it, roll your dice, and we'll start telling you what to do.
So first of all, Kings of Tokyo looks awesome, and I definitely want
Yes.
to try it. But I want to run it back to a statement you said earlier. Let's ramp it up for another game, like get the energy back up before we play another game. How many board games do you play in a night? And I feel like that might be a thing.
That was greatly changed by obviously having a small human. Pre-Atlas, we would invite people over for board game days, and I would cook. We would have an entire set of meals, and we would play like usually 6-7 hours of games.
Yeah,
Like,
but
but
how many
people were
different
fed.
games would you play in that time frame?
Average like 6.
You would play
4 to
six
6.
different games? Like you would grab a different game off the shelf every time?
Mm-hmm.
You're an animal. You're an absolute animal.
You kind of, we get into really like a pretty good rhythm of what are people like feeling. We can play, like we would play this game over and over again when it was kind of towards the end of the night when I played Kings of Tokyo, when it was still like the middle and people wanted, like we just ate, everybody started to get sleepy, we'd put all the dishes and food away and we'd play an aggressive game like Pit, like get everybody going again. Like we had a science down to this, man.
You are a complete extrovert that can be around people for 6 hours, and that's where we differ, my friend.
Yeah, we had some pretty monstrous people that would also come over and play with us.
That sounds like so much for me. Like 6
Yeah.
hours with people.
But like then, so this is where we would bog it down to like games that aren't quite as much involvement necessary, which would be a game called Mysterium, which is basically like a group clue. So there's a person who's basically what's called the ghost. He's been murdered at this like mansion. He's recruited however many psychics, up to 6 players, and the psychics get there, don't know who they are, where they are, what happened, and the ghost is trying to play these really cool picture cards to lead them to the murderer. And
Okay.
so you're working together to all try and figure out who you are individually as a like psychic, like your color, the room you killed them in, the weapon they were in, like your person, and then at the very end figure out who actually killed them. And if you were the person that killed them, it's not like you lost, but you as a group of psychics won because you found the murderer.
Okay.
But again, a group
So is that
clue.
very much like in the same vein of Lil Hitler then? Or Secret Hitler?
Not quite. This one's way more tame. Secret Hitler, when we would play, got extremely aggressive, and you could kind of hang back, but it was about involvement that got that one amped up and was more fun to play.
You know what's actually fascinating about that game is it was created as a Russian student's thesis. Do you know about this?
I did not.
So, I don't think it was called Secret Hitler at the time, but the exact game itself was made as a
Right.
thesis. And it was basically, so for all of you that are at home, essentially there's a group of townspeople. Secret Hitler has different titles for them, but this is the easiest way to describe it. There's a group of townspeople, there's 2 werewolves. These people are werewolves at night, they kill one person off in basically a heads up 7-up version. Everybody puts her down, they kill one person, then everybody goes, who killed it? And they have to try to guess and figure out who the last person standing is. And that was designed to show that the uninformed minority will always lose again, or the uninformed majority will always lose to the informed
Informed.
minority.
Interesting.
It was
Yeah.
to prove that because the two werewolves, because he did it as werewolves and town people,
Okay.
win 80% of the time. The
Interesting.
20% where they do win, it's just sheer dumb luck that they guessed at
Yeah.
both of them. But 80% of the time, one of them walks away.
Yeah. So Secret Hitler is on the list of games that we would play with people because it was a very fun introduction of you could be as involved as you wanted or not, and exactly like you said, there's a couple characters that are fascists. They know who each other are. They're trying to accomplish a goal. The rest of the people are blind. They're called liberals. They're trying to figure out who the fascists are and do these things. There's a bunch of lying, deception, and tons of truth that nobody believes, and it's just a back and forth of trying to find out who's on your team, who's not on your team, and it was always a blast. And yeah, that was one of the ones that we loved playing with people. I will say, if you do play this game or you have played it a bunch, one of the favorite rules we implemented was we would always sit at like the table and stuff like that and we would play this game like numerous times. We would
Yeah.
play this game usually like 5 times back to back to back. You're always switching up the characters, but every time we started a new game, we made a rule that you had to get up and change seats so that you weren't always looking at the same people. You would get up, everybody had to sit in a different chair, sit back down, because you were looking at new people all the time. So it kind of threw off how you would read people or who you were sitting next to or who you were after. It just added a very fun dynamic to the game. So I highly recommend doing that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I have for one of my favorites is just right now currently Dice Town Adventures. Bro, this
Nice.
is the same thing as you ever play Gloomhaven?
It's on my list.
Okay. Well, it's that same kind of idea. It's very similar to Cursed City in the just kind of deck building over time and your characters get stronger from dice thrown. And it's involved though. I'll warn everybody. Like you have to understand the basic game of dice thrown before you even go into it, which isn't overly complicated, but if you don't understand that, then adding in monsters where somebody else is playing them and playing a character adds a layer to it. But it's a great time.
Dice Throne being a very simple, fun one that added to our repertoire. I didn't put it on mine
Battle
because I knew
Yahtzee.
you were meant. But yeah, it is
Battle
just
Yahtzee.
Battle Yahtzee. It's all you're going for is people are like, what do I do? Go look at your card, go for a full house or a straight. Like you're going for Yahtzee. And when you don't have that, see what the other dice like combos do. That is it. Very simple.
And they've designed the game really well in that it's hard not to get nothing. If you throw
Correct.
your dice and you play it appropriately. Now, if you're somebody sitting here going for straights, like, I have 5 dice, I want 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're like, good luck with that, bud. That's
Right.
But if you're going for the one that's like, so the way they manage it through their dice, basically, is the numbers that they have. But if you're going for a high reoccurring number that's like 1 through 3, then you're good. Like, you can make stuff happen. So, yeah.
And it's not even numbers, it's numbers and pictographs. So it's like, I tell people, go for numbers or go for pictures. See all those ones with fists on them? Guess what that's going to do? A lot of melee damage. Like, it is not complex, but a very good one.
But Dice Town Adventures, man. Oh, you move. They have game boards that you move around. You get loot that makes your character's decks stronger and make your characters stronger. There's boss battles. There's little small battle. Oh, dud.
Interesting. Can't wait to crack it. Again, small humans make it hard with choking hazards, but it's sitting on the shelf ready to go.
Dog, put it on the table higher than him. That's it.
Yeah. Another one we got is Space Base. Super simple, a little bit kind of a elaborate setup, but also very simple. You have a space base. It is 1 to 12. It is literally the numbers on a dice. You put a little ship. There's spaceships because you are a spaceport. 1 to 12 on them, and it's a very simple turn of when you roll your dice, you do what is on those dice and like the number, and it corresponds to that number. So if you roll a 4 and a 4, like it's whatever. I'm not gonna go into those, but it's a very simple game, and then you're
Yeah.
trying to like buy more coins, buy more ships, upgrade yours. And what's cool is on other people's turns, when you upgrade your ships, you get to utilize what you've upgraded on their turn. So again, involved always. So the more people you have, the more you're doing when it's not your turn. And you're just trying to get to a certain amount of points. And most of the time, this is a very much luck based because of the dice you roll, but it's also a small bit of strat. I would say this one's probably 60 luck because it matters on the numbers you roll, but it's also dice. So guess what? No, like sixes and eights are going to be sixes, eights, and sevens are highly more probable than ones and or like than 12s and 11s. But what's cool is you can either add the dice together or use them individually. So if you roll a 3 and a 4, you can either use it as a 7 or use it as a 3 and a 4.
This
So
looks like a
even
great
if you
game.
upgrade your ships 1 through 6, literally every turn you're going to be able to do something because those are getting rolled on the dice.
Okay.
But just a fun one, not super complex, and just like easy to play. It does take up a lot more space because your spaceport's like probably 18 inches in front of you, and you kind of will stack it up and down, and you need that for however many players. So if you're playing on like a tiny little card table, not the best. Optimum number of people, probably 4, 3 or 4, 4 or 5. Nah, that's a lie. 3 to 5. Nah, that's a lie. 4 or 5. Nailed it. First try.
Okay. Another honorable mention I'll toss in there is Heroescape. Did you ever play that
Don't know
one?
what that is.
So basically,
No.
they have you draw a card. It tells you how to build your board right in front of you, and then you draft a certain characters and you fight each other like in Risk. It's a good time.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Take it hardcore.
Huh?
Last one. I'll finish with my favorite, which is Base Catan. We have literally played.
Interesting.
I would say close to 1,000 games, if not more, over time. It's just one that does not get boring to me, and I explain it as Monopoly meets craps. It is balanced enough with luck and skill that it can kind of be interesting. We've played it. We used to just play it weekly at 2 different places I live with roommates and neighbors. Like we would come
Okay.
over, everybody would help set it up. We would start playing, and it's the luck of I can't believe it, but 4s and 9s are hitting tonight versus well, yeah, statistically 6s and 8s hit the whole game.
Do you
And
play with the expansions, or do you just play the base
no,
9 times out of
just
10?
the base game 10 times out of 10. The
Okay.
expansion of 6 players when we have them, but just I love the core concept so much that everyone I talk to that's played expansions tells me I'm an idiot but I've never played the expansion with someone who knows how to play, so I've never learned it. And when we tried learning it, none of us were paying attention by the time we tried to play a couple, and we're like, whatever, let's just play the base one. And we just got too into it. So I will say my faux pas is not taking the time and energy to learn, but at the same time I was like, this is so much fun that I enjoy it so much
That's
that
Maggie. That's going against your pet peeve.
of learn like listening to someone explain it.
Yeah, you said you weren't paying attention when people were explaining it to you.
We were all newbies. My buddy bought the board. Like this is when we were roommates with him. He bought the board, and like all of us watched the video on how to play it, and then we started setting it up, and we were all like, no one wanted like we all read the rules, but we just couldn't implement it. It was when I worked at a winery. We were a couple bottles deep, and we're like, this was a bad decision. We should have done this before cracking out the steaks and wine. So it was our own fault. No one explained it. That's where I still stand in the light on being okay with it because none of us explained it. None of us knew how to play, and we were all just like, we don't want to learn a new game right now. Let's just go back and play it like the standard version.
All right,
Yeah.
but no Incas for you.
No. Very interesting because like, the expansions all look phenomenal. I really do want to give them a try, but it was one of those like it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like we're super happy with this one. If I go to someone else's house, they're like, dude, I have all the experience. I'm like, pick your favorite one and teach me. I'm super open to it, but just have not had the reason to want to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you playing any board games online?
No.
Oh,
No, we haven't done any of those. We've bust out. We'll play a couple of our other like mono games that we'll do, and like when Atlas goes down. Actually, we're getting ready to play one like right now, so we're gonna be wrapping this up soon. But yeah, just when we get some time, just crack out a little one, play a couple games, and go to bed.
and wrap it up.
Yeah, man. So yeah, out there are literally so many countless ways you can get into games. You know, like you said, best way to do it sometimes. For me, jumping into the deep end of going to a game store, being like a lot of the guys that work there, especially the older ones, if you're like, I like this, and this, that's where we buy a bunch of our new games because they're like, oh, you got to try this one. And I would say 7 times out of 10, we've really liked their recommendations and going out there trying it. Like the effort of learning the new game and reading the rules 10 times while you're learning, but teaching yourselves how to play is rewarding enough that you're like, okay, we got this. Next time we play, we're going to nail this. And
Okay.
it's just been so much fun. And one of our top investments where, like, you know, that game of where's the fire? Like, I don't know which ones I'm playing. But get out there, play some new games, give them a try, or, you know, check out some of those things you can do in groups because the possibilities are limitless.